Hey there, geography students. This is Mr. Everton, and this is our fourth module in our distance learning situation. I hope everybody's doing all right. Um, we're going to continue talking about South Asia. This module, I should say, because it's 2 weeks, we're going to focus on South Asia and globalization. So today we're going to define globalization, and we're going to explain the causes and the effects. So why has globalization happened? What is globalization? Why is it happening? And how has it changed things? It's another way to say that. So this, I'm going to post a link on Canvas to this website, which is really cool. And you're like, immediately, no, it's not, Mr. Everton. Check it out. I think it's really cool. It shows you all of these, each dot on this map is a ship that is moving around the world. And you can see that the yellow dots are container ships like this one right here. That have, you've seen these containers on the road being pulled by a truck, probably, and it's full of goods that is being taken from one place to another. And so this is a container ship, which is full of all of those containers that then will be offloaded at a port. And then there's also oil tankers. These red dots are ships that are transporting liquids, which usually means an oil tanker like this one. So if we zoom in on this part of the world here, the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, and the Persian Gulf, you can see that there's a lot of red dots in the Persian Gulf, which makes sense because this is where a lot of the oil is produced in the world. You can also see the importance of the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea, and you can see lots of ships lined up to move through the Suez Canal to get from one sea to the other. And the Suez Canal allows those ships to make that trip a lot faster without having to sail all the way around the continent of Africa. Another map, we'll zoom in on China. We can take a look at where those manufacturing cities in China we talked about are on the coast of China. And you can see there's lots of dots clustered around there, and that there's a trade route, a really important trade route, takes them through this narrow strait between Southeast Asia and Indonesia. And you can see that that is where the city of Singapore is, and that is why Singapore is such an important city, because of the strategic location that allows it access to this very valuable trade route. And here you can see yet again more, you can see the actual trade routes. So these aren't the dots, these are just showing you. Whew, you should go check out this website. It's amazing. So we live in a world that has become increasingly globalized. Your phone is not made in the United States. The oil and gas that we put in our cars does not come from the United States. Similarly, we have things in the United States like our clothing and our chain restaurants, which then affect other parts of the world. Like there's Starbucks outside the United States, there's McDonald's everywhere. So globalization is the development of a global worldwide society. Like basically beyond borders, like the borders of countries start to matter less, and we start to all become citizens of the world. So in a global society, information, goods, money, and people flow freely across national borders. All of those things can move across borders as they want to. And, people are moving less than they have, but information continues to move completely freely. Goods and money move across national borders with very little check on them. I mean, in a world with the internet, it's almost impossible to keep information out of your country. It's going to come in. And countries like China that try to keep information out from the internet are not always particularly successful. Do we live in a true global society is an important question to think about, an important question to ask. Let's do, just for some historical context. In the United States, in the 1960s, the Ford Mustang was one of the most popular cars in America. There's a picture of the Ford Mustang. The Ford Mustang was made in Michigan, in Dearborn, Michigan, in an American automotive plant. In 1960, goods were made in other countries. The goods that were made in other countries made up only 8% of consumer purchases in the USA. That means, things that people bought, only 8% of them were not made in America. Today, the Toyota Corolla, one of the most popular cars in America, produced in 18 different countries. 60% of what Americans buy now comes from overseas. So we've gone from 8% to 60. That's a huge change. That's a huge change for workers that are making the cars. That's a huge change for consumers, the people buying the cars. It's a huge change for businesses that make money off of production of cars, and it's a big change on the environment. Another example, in the 1960s, Converse All-Stars, which I owned a pair of in middle school, were made in the United States. Today, they are no longer made in the United States. They are made in Vietnam and China and other South Asian countries. So we're going to be talking about the sneaker, and we're going to be talking about where sneakers are made and how they are made and how that is affected by globalization. And here is a factory in South Asia where some women are assembling sneakers. So how does making a sneaker, how does it affect different people in different places? How does it decide where people live? And how does it affect the economies of different countries around the world? We're going to be talking specifically about Asia, South Asia, and East Asia, and how these places are affected by changes brought on by globalization. All of this is possible because of free trade. This is a major cause of globalization is free trade, which allows goods to move from one country to another. The WTO, the World Trade Organization, is made up of 164 countries working together since after 1947, end of World War II, to reduce trade barriers, so make it easier for countries to buy and sell things to each other. Of course, right now, trade is not doing so well because of the pandemic, because so many countries have had to shut down their economies in order to slow the spread of this disease. It's really caused a lot of economic problems. It's important to recognize that the economic problems in China affect the United States, and that the economic problems in the United States affect China and affect Latin America and affect Europe. And, if countries are able to work together more, if we're able to truly globalize and work together, it's going to make the recovery from this a whole lot faster. So another cause of globalization are large corporations called multinational corporations. And these are just really big companies that operate in more than one country. So for example, LG Electronics, you probably have some LG Electronics in your house, maybe not, I don't know, but they're based in South Korea. They do business all around the world. They're based in South Korea, but they buy and sell things in the United States. They buy and sell things in South America, in Egypt, in Australia. You can read a map, I hope, at this point. Yeah, map. Okay, effects of globalization. Because more work is now being sent overseas from the United States to other countries, because the United States is buying things from that are manufactured in Asian countries, those Asian countries are able to have a lot of economic growth. This graph shows you the 4 Asian tigers of Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and South Korea, and it shows you how their GDP has exploded since 1960. As American companies have started to manufacture more goods in South Asia, as more companies in South Asia have been able to compete and to sell their goods in the United States, those countries have seen incredible economic growth and have become much more developed and successful and have a much higher quality of life. Another effect of globalization is economic interdependence. That means countries need each other. Now, I know that it can be popular in the media to hear people say things like, the United States is in debt to China, and China is going to take over the United States because they have all of our debt. It's so much more complicated than that. The United States and China need each other very much. If the United States is successful, it makes China more successful. If China is successful, it makes the United States more successful. They're interdependent. They rely on each other because the United States has a lot of companies that have work done in China. We need factory workers in China in order for our companies to be successful. China is dependent on the economic health of the United States. They export billions of dollars worth of goods to the United States. If the United States is not doing so well and we're not able to buy things the way we want to, then we're buying less Chinese goods and China's economy suffers. So, what's good for one of us is good for both of us. Another effect of globalization: fewer things are made in the United States. The words made in the USA are less common than they ever were. This has led to deindustrialization in the Rust Belt, which is, remember we watched that video about Dayton, Ohio at the beginning of the year. There's been a decline in the secondary sector of the American economy, fewer factories making less stuff. The United States has begun to have a more developed tertiary economy, right? So in 2001, that was when the last pair of Converse sneakers was made in North Carolina. And now these shoes are made exclusively outside the United States, mostly in Asia. And if you look at this, I just covered it up with the thing. If you look at the sneakers, you can see that one of them, you can see the difference if you look at the label. So just a quick check for our understanding. Globalization has increased for many reasons. Blank trade allows for the flow of goods between countries to have few restrictions. Free trade allows for the flow of goods between countries to have few restrictions. So countries can buy and sell things more easily. Blank corporations have bases in multiple countries, aiding the production and distribution of goods and services worldwide. Multinational corporations. All of this has helped countries rely on each other, which is also known as economic interdependence. All right. Make sure that you answer the quiz questions on Canvas, and then there's going to be 2 more assignments for this module. One of them is going to be a hyperdoc, which is like a slideshow that you answer questions in, and then the third will be making a map on Google Maps. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.